lost at sea, how our mine ships are were shanghaied at the port of entry. In the simplest of terms, the name is not me, it is the name of the vessel I arrived on Earth in. The placenta or afterbirth is the vessel, and the registration is the registering of my ship, which etymologically is my mind. The ship that I arrive in, where I am the passenger manifest cargo captain, the ship is abandoned at birth. I must reclaim my helm to regain my captaincy. In order to find my way out, I have to reclaim my vessel or bark. Inasmuch as my vessel that I arrived in was deemed lost at sea, or Admiralty Phoenician law, with no accurate forensic evidence within the correct time or space, it must now be redeemed. Redemption. My mitochondrial DNA from my mother is the only evidence linking me to that birthing where I was that manifest cargo. I was born in a house that no longer exists, but the evidence of that birth port of entry is on for the public record in the birth certificate. The owners or shipbuilders of that vassal, are now deceased, or I am the sole heir to that ship vessel, and must make my claim in the correct time and space. I am the sole survivor of that vessel, where I am considered an orphan lost at sea via shipwreck. The Mayans left behind a celestial calendar for verification evidence in the heavens to locate the space and time, in the same way that the ancient mariners, Phoenicians, used the stars to steer their ships' vessels. In essence, I have been shanghaied, slavery, fraud, piracy, etc. The ship is deemed to be the placenta, and my legal name is the name of my ship vessel, not of myself, so I must claim the name of the ship as my rightful property to regain title to that ship vessel mine. The name is the escutcheon on the back of my ship, in the same way that the escutcheon is the covering over the keyhole, X hole, or key who L. As a point of reference, I arrived here on board the ship Placenta Christopher Robert Dimitru at the key of 122 Pine Grove Avenue, Port Huron, Michigan, United States. Zip accepted 48060 before midnight on the 11th of Tammuz, 5743, where the Gregorian calendar date of June 22nd, 1983 has me appearing and soon presumed dead for 3,719 years. Any and all things registered in that ship's name is deemed to be cargo of that ship, and because I have not claimed my ship where it has been pirated and shanghaied, all of my energy and creation was stolen. My DNA is stolen via deception and non-disclosure of the true facts, and is a clear fraud upon humanity by any all that engage in this piracy and who have sworn oaths, pledges, etc. to that effect. The cold neater oath is worthless, in that the body of the oath negates the oath itself in its own mirror. I am taking back my ship as the one true and only master and commander, owner by virtue of my mitochondrial DNA, or no other can lawfully claim that status, for my blood is my proof positive of that position. One has to see the difference between the living world of common or natural law and dead by consent, corporate fiction, legal illusion. One has to see the duality of the courts in both roles they play, where commerce admiralty is the default position in order to milk the bonds of the unsuspecting, and why real crimes and statute taxation can be dealt with in their courts. I also have to see that statutes are not laws, they are legal bylaws statutes, and are only applicable to the legal name surety ship's name that is gained through the willful consenting of everyone who uses a government identification of any kind, where it can and will be joined to the birth certificate, where people unknowingly commit fraud by claiming to be the legal name versus my own living one. There is a huge difference, subtle but real. This will show me why any and all use of a legal name is assumed, presumed completely by the courts to make me instantly guilty, and in my jurisdiction, by consent, where my ignorance is not and never will be a defense. From here I will set the stage and the actors upon it. All lawyers and judges play for the same team as members of the bar, and they get non-bar members to do their dirty work. In short, they get us to destroy ourselves by getting people to swear oaths to their corporate crown fictions and in effect sell their souls to the whore of Babylon commerce god. As a result, all bar members are citizens of the City of London State Admiralty ship mind and are foreign agents anywhere outside of that square mile country. If I use my legal name, it's my copyrighted property. I am agreeing fully that they are the captain of my ship. Ship, like hood or sigh, translates into the word mind, like ment or mente from Latin. In short, they are pirates in the high seas, where the benchmarks surveys have the planet allegorically under about 2 feet of water. If I use my legal name, I am agreeing to sign on and serve on my ship as crew, where the captain is master and I am a slave on my rowman galley. Fact. However, this is a ship I can leave because I have been fraudulently shanghaied with the original sin with my intent to deceive via the registering of the placenta DNA joinder of my ship as me. What people do not realize is that it's the use, any and all use of that legal name that entraps them via my own willful, if ignorant of the truth, consent. Their entire ruse is dependent upon assumption and presumption of the legal name because most everyone uses identification. These guys want me sailing with them as part of their fleet. Fleet Street, ring a bell? As a ship of the line versus me claiming my own ship as the flagship it truly is. All things registered are in fact given up by willful consent to the Crown as part of the cargo aboard my fraudulently salvaged ship. People are also confused as to what the Crown really is, and this is because people have been divided and conquered using fake borders in countries that actually believe they need a piece of paper to pass through these illusional walls. Pure madness, especially those who are guarding these illusions. While I am sailing their ship, I am expected and obligated to follow orders from some pirate admiral privateer operating under a letter of marque and reprisal from the fictitious Crown and its board of directors. The more things I register, the more cargo they lay claim to via this fraud, piracy, and theft. A fraud revealed is null and void. Nunc pro tunc, tunc pro nunc. Specifically, as it pertains to any and all things legal, everyone who is party to trying to entice me into slavery, knowingly or unknowingly, all are guilty under common law, natural law, and my own Admiralty Phoenician law. In short, if I am in any all kinds of legal proceedings, collections, foreclosures, tickets, fines, banking, etc., these are in fact fraudulent inasmuch as those using a false impersonation, personation, legal name, title, office, etc., they are not acting in good faith and have unclean hands via my own knowing, unknowing, and are party to conspiracy, piracy, hijacking, and enticement to slavery. There are two very active jurisdictions going on here, and the system defaults to Admiralty, Lex Mercantorium, Commerce, and Phoenician fraud, where they are also in common law jurisdiction, but they avoid it because it removes all ability of the judge, quote unquote, to command the corporate ship, and in turn, my ship name is a secondary ship at the line. A jury has authority over the judges and lawyers where they are rendered mute in the same way that I cannot be heard in their statutory commerce courts because I am deemed legally dead by consent for using the dead legal name fiction. Dead men tell no tales, have no rights, and are treated as meat and salvage. Every ruling ever made in these courts of commerce are pure and utter fraud and are all voided accordingly, and this is what they are terrified of. The apostolic letter removed our immunity, rendering all courts common law. Everything I have ever done using my legal name I claimed as mine was done so in fraud under a false impersonation. Therefore, I do not own or have legal claim to anything I have previously registered in the vessel known as Christopher Robert Demetriou, but I do have a lawful claim inasmuch as all things legal are fraud ab initio ad infinitum nunc pro tunc tunc pro nunc. Any judge, quote unquote, cannot create the necessary joinder if they cannot give me to give the full name of the vessel I arrived herein, and one that the pirates acting on behalf of a fictitious crown had fraudulently laid claim to. The intention of my mother and father was to give me the name where all assumption and presumption of its legal status is, was, and will always be the intent of another to commit fraud otherwise. It's mine lawfully, it always was. This has been and is a planetary issue that involves all of humanity. And we need to start thinking in these terms lest we remain divided and thus conquered. Yes, I have a case, perhaps, but the simple truth of the matter is that every single case has one root cause, and that is the legal names, be they persons, the living personified, or business names, titles. They are all one and the same thing, legally fictitious and fraud, and all are treated as ships in their navy. Keep in mind the naval aspects where the umbilical cord was my original lifeline to my ship, and when that placenta was stolen, I was cast adrift allegorically. As another example, if I have been mistakenly sent something with the legal name Christopher Robert Demetriou making a legal claim, then everyone connected to that sending, including the postal workers, is guilty of enticement into slavery and fraud. Just for starters, so I let every one of them know that I am fully aware of that intent to attempt to aid and abet me into committing fraud, especially all the lawyers, judges, bankers, etc. This is my lifeblood that keeps them able to parasite the living. A living being cannot contract with the dead corporation, and why the intensity surrounding the demanding that I give consent to a legal name because it enables pirates to board our ships and plunder our wealth because we are assumed as part of their fleet. without knowing. This is not a legal proceeding, but rather a lawful one, where my position is common law and natural law, without assumption presumption being allowed. As previously stated, the courts operate in both capacities, but default to dead by consent, surety, legal commerce, salvage rights, versus living lawful truth. This is the point we really need to get and let ourselves think and let sink in. Otherwise, we'll be trapped in their legal illusion and fleeced accordingly. Remember, the court's immunity has been removed by the apostolic letter, and they are terrified of what I am sharing in this document because it makes them lawfully liable for their actions, where my layer of corporate protection has been fully stripped away. The emperor's wannabes have no clothes. When dealing with any all courts, only the clerk gets served, and I mean served. The clerk is the keeper of the captain's logs and manifests, thus the cabin boy. It's as simple as going to a wicket outside of the courtroom, addressing the clerk with the paperwork and the comment served. Fact, any all attempts to tempt, contempt with tempt, to create joinder with me, the living sole survivor, with assumption presumption of salvage theft of my rightful property, ship, afterbirth, DNA, RNAs, aiding and abetting into fraud, enticement to slavery, piracy, etc., which are all capital offenses, and I am the sole master commander of my ship, period. They, any, all agents of, for, by, in, on, at, with the crown know this, so it is a willful act of harm and crimes against humanity. My true birth date is corrected in this document, where I can no longer be presumed, assumed dead, lost at sea. Ye must be born again. Where me arrived, it says me on purpose, in my key, X marks the spot. Think letter of mark, R8 privateering for the crown, now where X marks the spot. This is my port, left 10% mind of entry. A passport was not required, but was mandated upon the registration of my ship by my parents. Once the ship was registered, it became part of the fleet as a ship of the line, where my flagship status was shipwrecked.